Hey everybody, Ian Bremmer here. Got your world in more than 60 seconds. Coronavirus, lots of crises still with us. You get more seconds. Just kind of the way it works. Little contract informally between you and me. Let's get started. Here are your questions. What are your takeaways from night one of the RNC? That the country's incredibly divided. That if you are pro-Trump and you were watching that RNC, you thought it was very powerful. You thought it was a strong message. It reflected interests that you have in the country. And if you can't stand Trump, then you thought it was a dumpster fire and it solidified your pre-existing beliefs. There is I accept that the RNC is more of a cult of personality around Trump, who occupies all the oxygen in the room, but also just has a far greater reach and following in media than we've seen from other leaders of Republican or Democratic parties in recent history. But I also recognize that there are a lot of people out there, Senator Scott, certainly Nikki Haley, Steve Scalise, others. I wouldn't say it's a broad demographic tent, but I do think it is a broad political tent in terms of the ideological orientations of the people that are represented there, as well as the fact that if Trump wasn't president, you would say that there would be a lot of infighting among that group. But there isn't in this environment. There were a couple of disastrous speeches, certainly, and everyone's making fun of Kimberly Guilfoyle, who really shouldn't be public speaking about issues that matter. But she's with Don Trump Jr., and the family is, a very big piece of this. I will say I'm a little surprised Jared Kushner has not been announced as giving a speech yet. Maybe he will show up over the course of the week, given that every member of the Trump family that likes the president is speaking. But, that's where you have it. Well, the amusing thing, I suppose, is that they're doing so much more of it live. And so while the production quality isn't as high, the potential for there to be something of interest, gaffes, something that's more sort of newsworthy and watchable does go up a bit. But again, completely divided, and it's not like there are a lot of people that are watching both. Okay, that's it. Alexei Navalny was poisoned. What is going on? Well, if you're a Russian opposition member, that has to be one of the most physically dangerous occupations in the world. And the fact that he was poisoned but was not killed, and looks like he was poisoned with the same kind of agent that other Russian double agents and others have been. The Skripal poisoning, for example, a few years ago in the UK, others, same kind of thing. The Russians, of course, denied it. The Russian government said that there was no such poisoning. The doctors in Omsk that were spoken to by the Kremlin said, no, he definitely wasn't poisoned. Of course, they get him to Germany, and the truth actually comes out. What's extraordinary is that there's almost complete impunity. President Putin in Russia feels like there is nothing that can be done against him, irrespective of what he does to Russian citizens. There is no rule of law. There are no constraints on his power. And it's deeply disturbing that one of the most important countries in the world has a leader that feels like he can act that way. Of course, in China, Xi Jinping, the way that the Uyghurs are treated, the way that they've acted in Hong Kong recently, same kind of thing. In the case of Navalny, the German government, both the chancellor and the foreign minister, Merkel and Heiko Maas, had a very strong statement saying that they would not tolerate this, that they demanded a full investigation, that the people responsible must be held to account, but not supported by the EU as a whole. And President Trump is saying no such thing. So, the Germans are kind of talking themselves, almost voices in the wilderness, and it increases the sense of impunity that President Putin actually has. It's depressing from a global and human perspective, but boy, it sends a message. Navalny on this plane and crying out in pain and then in a coma and probably isn't going to die. Certainly dangers for the rest of his life in terms of, the ongoing health that he has. Hard to imagine he's going to want to go back to Russia anytime soon. It's going to give you second, third, fourth thoughts if you're a member of the opposition in Russia or you're a journalist that wants to write about truth. There is no challenging President Putin at this point or any time in the foreseeable future. And for those that see what's happening in Belarus and say the Russians, you're next, even with the demonstrations we've seen in Siberia in the Far East, I just don't see it. What's happening in South Korea with the closure of schools? Well, we have a few hundred cases a day now, which in South Korea is a lot. The South Koreans have had, sort of zero tolerance in terms of trying to ensure that they can control the virus, and therefore lots of contact tracing, extensive testing, and quarantine, shutting things down. And they had, even though they have, almost complete compliance in mask wearing and social distancing in their schools, now that they've seen a few hundred cases coming out of these schools, they're shutting the schools down. Not everything, not higher ed kids that are about to take their big exams, high schoolers to get into college, but younger kids, they are all going to be virtual for the coming month. And on the one hand, that has improved the popularity of President Moon, who is seen as handling this very effectively by the South Korean people. So for those of you watching South Korea as a country, that's significant. In the United States, it certainly tells you that as we try to get kids to go back to schools in areas where you have hot zones, where you have lots of cases, likely you're going to have a lot of schools closing down again. I think it's hard to imagine that schools are going to be able to open, feasibly and across the board, at least until next year. That's my view right now. And for all of you parents out there that are like, please, God, get my kids out of the house. I can't take this. I'm also working. So's my husband. So's my wife. I'm sorry, but I think that's where we're going. It's going to be challenging. Finally, what do you make of Kim Jong-un rumors of incapacitation? I've only seen them come out of one news source so far. I don't find them very credible. It's not the first time. Last time around, a couple months ago, reported widely by the AP and CNN, and turned out it was no such thing. We have very little information on what's happening inside North Korea. You don't have intelligence that's coming out. You don't have journalists on the ground that have sources that are off the record. So you have to, you basically have to deal with accounts that come from people that have left North Korea, who certainly have political agendas and can't really be trusted about what they do and don't know. And whatever you can find, the tea leaves you can read from watching North Korean state television, state media, satellite imagery, that gives you a lot of information when they're preparing, say, a nuclear or ballistic missile test. Gives you very little information when you're talking about whether Kim Jong-un is alive or dead. The fact that they thought he was in a coma a couple months ago and now they're saying it again, I don't have any particular reason to believe it, nor do I have any reason to believe that North Korea is going to cause much trouble, especially in the run-up to U.S. elections. I think that at the very least want to see what's going to happen out of the U.S. Before they decide how much they want to orient towards a more friendly engagement to see if they can shake some cash loose, or a tougher line policy to see if they can shake some cash loose. Either way, the outcome they're looking for is shaking some cash loose. That's it for me. I will talk to you all soon. Be good. Avoid people.